Welcome, everybody. We got a real doozy for you this week. Why Arnold was supposed to win the 1980 Olympia. Of course, we all know the huge controversy around the 1980 Olympia. Mike Mentzer, this guy Mike Mentzer, was the favorite one. He came in and clearly in the best shape, too. But then Arnold entered, I think, 2 days before the competition. He entered. He was in poor shape. He came out of retirement. The last time he won was in 1975. He came out of retirement, not really in the best shape, and he won, and Mentzer ended up getting fifth. Huge controversy. Everybody was upset. Everybody thought, oh, Mentzer really needed to win, or at least one of the other guys, but not Arnold. But I'm going to make the case here that, no, Arnold was supposed to win. And even if we acknowledge that he didn't have the best body, he was still supposed to win. And this is going to include, of course, we're not just going to talk about the 1980 Olympia, but this will include a critique I have of physical culture. This is going to be a critique of therapy culture. What therapy is and why we don't receive it, and why we even don't allow ourselves to receive it when we do go to therapy. This will include an elaboration of my critique of objectivism. And I think this will include why objectivism isn't more popular. I think Mentzer, so Mentzer was an objectivist. Mike Mentzer was an avowed objectivist, and the error that he made, not in this competition so much, although he did make huge errors in this competition, I think the error that he made, it's an error that gets us all eventually. So we'll talk about what that error is, how objectivism commits the error, and how objectivism actually keeps you from working through this error. Not only does it commit this error, but it keeps you from working through this error, and hence I think this is what makes it less popular. I even think it's so eerie. I even think Mentzer in the 1980 Olympia is a symbolic representation of objectivism and how it commits this error. Objectivism is not the only philosophy or school of thought that commits this error, but it's quite prominent in them. Even though by their own philosophical standards it really shouldn't be, but it is. I know that doesn't make much sense. Don't worry, this will. We do free consultations, animusempire.com/schedule. If you just want to reach out and talk to somebody about what's going on. That's why I'm here. Okay, so outline for this presentation. This will be in 2 parts because it's just too long. So we'll first do context, and then we'll do objectivism background. I've critiqued objectivism before. I'm going to include that critique and elaborate on it. Even though, I'm not an objectivist. They would not allow me to be an objectivist. We'll talk about it. I'm not an objectivist, but I do think it's really helped me out a lot. It really helps you to become a better thinker. And I think especially what objectivism does, to its credit, which I think indicates at least a correct approach they have to philosophy, is it's very good when it comes to elaborating on the history of philosophy, other philosophers. It just really helps you understand where everybody's coming from and helps you group and organize everything. I know people who hate Ayn Rand, hate objectivism, have gone through some objectivist scholar stuff on the history of, and specifically the history of philosophy, and they've come away thinking, wow, I've studied this stuff for years. Anyways, I'm already getting sidetracked. Evolution of physical culture. So that will be part 1. And then here, we'll say part 2, close enough, will be what happened in the 1980 Olympia. More specifically, the problem with objectivism. We'll kind of just tee it up in this first part, and we'll talk about the objectivism, the background of objectivism. But so what specifically is the problem with objectivism? Takeaways. So what do we do with this? How does objectivism commit this? How did Mike Mentzer commit this? And how do we commit this? Because we all do, and I definitely did. Although I would say that this is a huge inflection point in my life, is when I figured this out and learned it. Hint, it was in grad school. And what I did, and I don't think Mincer did very well, what I was able to do, I don't think Mincer did it because he was too entrenched in objectivism, and thankfully I think I got into it. I'm thankful I got into it and learned about it. Especially, the epistemology stuff too is really good. It's not perfect. Well, maybe it is perfect, but it's not complete. We'll talk about it. God, I'm already getting sidetracked. So takeaways and then some examples. Yeah, that's what I already said. One example being, huge inflection point for a lot of men, huge inflection point for me. This is, good thing I'm doing this in 2 parts. All right. Let's first get to the context. So there's this 1980 Olympia controversy. Mincer was favored to win. I already said. Just too excited to talk about it. I had to cram it all into the first slide. So Mincer was favored to win. Schwarzenegger came in and won. And I don't know if you can tell, and this may be part of the issue, but here's Schwarzenegger, obviously. Here's Mincer. I think you can see my cursor. Mincer's the second from the left. Schwarzenegger is on the left. I think Mincer's in better shape when I look at this picture. And if we're just judging bodybuilding based on the body, that's arguable. Then, maybe. But can most people see the difference? Now, I can see the difference, right? Because I've been looking at dudes' naked bodies for the major part of my adult life. That's what happens when you get into bodybuilding. Just looking at dudes' bodies, checking out the striations in your butt, no big deal. So I can tell the difference, but can most people tell the difference? And maybe that's part of the issue. So Mincer was favored to win, but there was this conspiracy that Schwarzenegger came in and they gave it to him because it was used to promote Conan the Barbarian, which was a movie that was going to come out soon. Now, I don't think this is true because there's really no evidence for it, but I do think it is true in a sense in that if that did happen to be true, it's only the effect of a deeper cause, which I think is true. Right, so I don't think that they were correct in fact that was the conspiracy, but there is a conspiracy going on, a conspiracy of a world that Mincer just doesn't understand at this point. And neither did I, really, when I was at this point in my life, 29. I think this creates the better connection here because I was 29 when I went to grad school and learned this. Mincer was 29 here. But I don't think Mincer responded that well. I just want to say that again. If I was the judge, I would have picked Schwarzenegger, even though here's Mincer here. Can you name all these guys, by the way? Let's go back to this one. Can we name all these guys? That's Frank Zane, Boyer Coe, right? Tom Platz, Chris Dickerson. I don't know who that is. I would say it's Mike Katz, but because of the hair. Like the balding 70 guy's hair, but I don't think he was a participant in this competition. And then there's Robbie Robinson in the background. And then here, Boyer Coe, Schwarzenegger, of course. I don't know. Robbie Robinson. Who's this guy? Is he that British guy, like Ken Waller? No, Ken Waller's not British. There's some other British guy. Paul Graham. No, he's Australian. Yeah, and this was in Australia. And then there's Mike Mincer, Frank Zane, Chris Dickerson. And I just feel an extra connection with, cause just looking at this, I mean, if I had better genetics, admittedly, and if I just got in the best shape, took all the hormones I needed to take, this would be my ideal body. This Herculean, kind of gorilla arm physique, very compact torso, I guess you could say. We're both 5'9", the very short pecs, as opposed to Schwarzenegger's elongated pecs. So I kind of feel this connection with Mincer because of that. God, I'm getting off topic. But if I was the judge, I would vote for Arnold. And this has nothing to do with Conan or promoting Weider products, and is really everything to do with who Arnold is versus who Mike Mincer is. So Mincer's problem and his error, we'll talk about it and what we can do to work through this problem. And Mincer, I think is a symbolic representation of objectivism here. We're also going to talk about a critique I have of objectivism, what objectivism gets wrong and why it isn't more popular, and it keeps you this error in objectivism keeps you from working through Menser's problem. It's actually built into the philosophy. Okay, so let's get to it. Objectivism, we'll just go through some background here so we're all on the same page. And to kind of retrace what I talked about maybe 6 months ago now in my critique of objectivism. Well, I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Let's see what's on the next slide. Okay, so this would be objectivism in one sentence. My sentence. This is how, and this is just the background epistemology of it, how it relates, or how it answers these deeper metaphysical issues. So reality exists. It does exist. It is out there, and there is a consciousness that exists. I don't want to go into the derivation of this. I do think it is quite sound. And we use consciousness to grasp facts of reality. We need that. Without that, there's just no such thing as knowledge in the first place. And we induce these facts. We're able to induce these facts, meaning put facts together in a certain way based on their causes, though we admit measurements, as I say there, to create truth. This is where truth comes from. And truth is a value. A value is a truth that matters because it relates to what is important in our lives. I know I kind of just use important, but to define value, that's kind of implied as circular. So, to show it's important in our lives because it serves to further our lives, to make our lives healthy, to make us wealthy. Why would those be values in the first place? And so because values are ultimately truths, then we can judge values. We can judge values as either good or bad, correct or incorrect. And ultimately, what is correct or incorrect is what is good or bad or good or evil. And based on this view, which I also think is true. I agree with all that. But my previous criticism here was that the induction was too strict. Their view of induction, though I do think is correct, is simply too strict. Go through it. It's in an introduction to objectivist epistemology. I think Leonard Peikoff has just an entire lecture. I think it's a 12-part lecture on induction and also induction in the context of objectivism. And just other fields of study, what induction looks like. Physics, I think, is one of them. And I do think everything they say about induction is correct, but I don't think it's complete. It doesn't account for things like procedural knowledge. Like if you're learning to swing a hammer, how do you learn to swing a hammer? Is it this conscious process that you do where you're, drawing diagrams of a lever arm and I got to keep my grip really tight at this point, but loosen it up at this point because it creates this whiplash effect, like a trebuchet. And so I can exert less effort, although the hammerhead moves faster, stuff like that. Are you thinking of all that consciously, or is it just something that you just feel through? Well, no, I mean, even objectivists would say, no, it's just something you feel through. I mean, you can look at it, very analytically like that, and probably a lot of guys who get into objectivism would do something like that. I can relate. But there's clearly some other process going on there that we don't really understand. Now, we can kind of work backwards, but in the moment, we're really not doing it consciously. And similar things like intuitions, like even emotional intuitions, which, just because you have an emotional intuition doesn't mean it's right. But where do these come from? How do they form? Or more intellectual intuitions, like the Francis Crick, famously he took LSD and he got the idea of the double helix, which is how, the formation of DNA, or what form DNA takes. And, I think it's a big discovery. I don't know if it's, no, it is a big discovery. I was going to downplay it there. I don't know why. I think there have been discoveries of the 20th century that are big. So it's not the most important discovery of the 20th century, I would argue, but scientific discovery, but it's up there. And he, famously took LSD and had this vision of it. Well, what's the process there? Now, okay, the cleaning lady in Francis Crick's lab, she's not going to have this. When she takes LSD, she's going to have a different realization, So obviously, Francis Crick has been studying this a long time up to this point. He was probably holed up in some office somewhere in Cambridge or Oxford. What's the difference between those? I don't know. And so he's putting information in his brain, and his brain's doing something. It's making some leap and we know it makes a leap because we know he's right. I think this has been validated that he is right. I don't know, but anyways, this isn't the only example. I'm sure you've had this in your life. I've definitely had this in my life. So what is that leap? And objective, nobody else has an answer. I'm not, criticizing objectivism for saying, oh, everybody else has an answer. You don't know. But objectivism claims that they do. Or maybe they don't, but they just don't think it's that big a deal, or they don't look at it. Because I think a lot of this has to do with psychology, which objectivism really doesn't look at very well. So that's intuition. So yeah, they do talk about causes, but I think this creates problems with volition. This creates huge problems with volition because their way of inducing truths is with making conscious decisions, and the implication is you have conscious control of all parts of your conscious, what you're aware of, and therefore, this is all tied up together. Therefore, because though psychology exists, it is passive. You have total control over your psychology. You have total volitional control. You have total control over your unconscious, your subconscious. I'm just saying the same thing in different ways. And this is just not true. There's plenty of evidence for this not being true, even in the lives of objectivists, even in the lives of Mike Menser. And this has a direct effect on the perceptible issue here, which is the relationship between fact and value. So what is this relationship? So induction is crucial for values, which are also crucial, of course. And how can we have values without religion? This has been a big question, because previously the only way we have values is the demiurge there, the Platonic demiurge, the perfect form of the God coming and creating an imprint on the lower base material. The chaos, the form, the order comes in. And how do we create order out of chaos? Comes from on high. That's the only way we have value. Well, those values are ultimately indefensible, so we always get a reaction to this, which is, well, there are no values. There is no objective truth. It's all social construct anyways. And that's, part of the culture war here, or that we're experiencing today. And if you come from the demiurge perspective, you don't have an argument for that. You really don't have a good argument. All you have is, well, look at where, your subjectivism, look where it gets you. It gets you castrated children, right? Which is true. I'm just making fun of the, a lot of the hyperbole around it, but that is actually true. So, right, that you don't have a defense to that if you come from the demiurge perspective, the Platonic perspective, and that's why you see the rebellion. Well, if you don't have an explanation for your values, a real explanation, that doesn't beg the question, that isn't circular, and your values are a huge imposition on me, maybe not because of the value, maybe it is a good value, but it's a huge imposition on me because of my trauma. And so now your value feels like an imposition because of my trauma. Not all the time, but that's definitely true. Well, then you're just going to get rebellion. And if you're a conservative, you're going to look around and go, well, what's going on with the kids these days? And if you want to make a lot of money, you would have a YouTube channel with a lot of, outrage porn, essentially what it is. And I'll look at what this college kid thinks about, transgenderism. You're going to be like Steven Crowder. He was in the news because of that fight with his wife. I don't know. I have no takeaway on that. But this is what he did. He would go around and dunk on college kids who are essentially depressed and anxious. And he's right. He's right from a certain perspective because there really are two genders. But it's like, what are you doing? This is what happens when you just have two wrong sides of the same wrong coin talking to each other. We get this kind of war. But anyway, the idea is that so Rand came around, and her solution to this, which wasn't, there was some basis of this in the Greek philosophers, but she really, I think, articulated it very well. She said that an is implies an ought. A value, normative ethics, what you, quote, should do with your life in certain situations, it's based on not who you are so much, maybe to some degree, but more what you are. You have a particular nature because of this nature. That tells you what to do. That's your ethics. We don't need the demiurge coming from on high. We can look at matter. We can induce, seemingly disparate pieces of matter into truth and therefore value. And here to quote her from, this is Objectivist Ethics. The good is neither an attribute of things in themselves nor of man's emotional states. Well, I have an issue with that. It's an either attribute. Yeah, I think men's emotional states play a part. It's not the basis. Okay. But an evaluation of the facts of reality by man's consciousness according to a rational standard of value. Rational in this context means derived from the facts of reality and validated by a process of reason. The objective theory holds that the good is an aspect of reality in relation to man. And this must be discovered, not invented, by man. And so you combine that with life as a standard of value, and you have a basis for ethics. The one problem with this is she effectively uses reason to define rational standard here, which may not be such an issue. She goes into what reason means more in other areas, not in objectivist ethics, of course. But the other, bigger problem here are what are the facts of reality? What are the facts of reality that you look at? What determines what facts of reality, right? Because you can't look at them all. You can't consider them all. And you can say, well, we group together, by measurement of mission, by looking at their causes. But even when you do that, there's a lot of facts. There's a lot of facts. And when I look at objectivists argue this point, I've seen objectivists omit huge facts before, and they continue to do so. So maybe there's something else. I'm not saying they're bad objectivists or anything. I'm just saying maybe there's something else influencing us there that we need to acknowledge. So example of this, I was bringing up the grill at the zoo. How do we determine how to set up a grill's habitat in the zoo? Do we look at the nature of chimpanzees, even though there's a lot of similarity? No, we look at gorillas. Gorillas have certain behavioral patterns. They form groups in certain ways. They do certain things. We need to set up their habitat in a certain way. And, you go to different zoos across, across the country, across the world. All gorilla habitats are set up, in my experience, have been set up in the same way. Same thing. This is what I make about point I make about the Oedipus complex. How I derive values that are important in therapy. The two values being authority, how you deal with authority and intimacy. Well, this comes from the Oedipus complex, right? This comes from an important issue, because humans have evolved with a certain amount of sexual dimorphism. Two important values for us are going to be authority, how we relate with authority, and how we relate with intimacy. competency and work, as I say there. So this tells us that maybe having a girlfriend or boyfriend will be important. Maybe having some kind of community will be important. Based on, well, maybe not the Oedipus complex, but maybe, okay, so that's based more on the fact that intimacy is important, and that we really don't have a consciousness because we can only explain, I would argue, the development of our consciousness the way it is due to our complex social relationships. It's not the only thing, but I think it definitely needed to be there. I think development of fire too, and cooking food was part of it anyway. Perhaps drug trips were a part of it. I could see that. So we need social relationships. We need a community. We don't really have a consciousness without relationships. We don't have a consciousness without isolation either, without being in solitude. And then honesty. So honesty is important if connection is important. What does honesty look like? Right, and I go into that. Well, because emotions work in this way, then honesty's this or that. So that's just some background there. So then this debate happened, or no, not a debate, but a conflict that turned into a debate between Leonard Peikoff and David Kelly. Now, Leonard Peikoff is the intellectual heir of Ayn Rand, who created Objectivism. And so he's like the voice of the movement, I guess, of the philosophy of the school. And David Kelly was a student. And David Kelly went to go give a speech at a libertarian convention, some kind of libertarian gathering. Which kind of makes sense because objectivists and libertarians have similar politics. Maybe not similar philosophy, but similar politics. And that's what this debacle turned into. That's why there was this conflict, is because Kelly went and gave a speech. Peikoff said, well, you shouldn't have gone because we don't agree with libertarians. I mean, we agree on the non-aggression principle, but, libertarians are crazy. They could come at it from just the non-aggression principle, right? They may not have a serious basis for that, in their intellect. So they're more likely to describe some crazy theories according to objectivism, like anarcho-capitalism, or like having competing governments or something like that. And Kelly's like, yeah, I agree, but so what? I mean, should I not associate with these people just because there's disagreement? And he says effectively, look, we can judge ideas, but not people. The libertarians' ideas are wrong, but we were not saying that the people are bad because they're wrong. Christians use this, they say, hate the sin, not the sinner. And Peikoff said, now the only reason that we can judge actions to be good is because of the ideas that guide those actions. So yeah, we can judge ideas. And we can judge people because they have those ideas. Because according to objectivism, induction is this one process you take. And in order to do induction in this way every time, you must have total control over your volition. Meaning, maybe not short term, but at least long term, because psychology is a passive thing. It's directed by your consciousness fully. Your psychology is based on your philosophical values. And it is, but it's based on other things too. So the example here, which as I was learning about this, 20 years ago, is that there's the example that they give is, well, what if a book fair was hosted by a tyrannical government? Like if you lived in North Korea and, there's huge suppression of free speech, but the government put on this book fair as like a dog and pony show because they're like visiting diplomats or something, and that's what North Korea does, and really all tyrannical governments do to varying degrees. They put on a false face, they put on a persona, and then they had this book fair to make it seem like that they have free speech. and they know maybe you're a political dissident. I don't know exactly how this works out, but they haven't arrested you yet. I mean, well, the point, okay, so let's say they didn't know about you, and you know there was going to be no negative, legal ramifications to participate in this book fair, but they said, look, just for a day, if you have a book and you want to come sell it, you can do that. We're not going to track you or anything. Is that okay? Now, Peikoff would say, or is it okay to participate? Now, Peikoff would say no, because you are giving sanction to people who have wrong ideas. And they have wrong ideas to such a degree that we can make a judgment of their character and say they're evil people because they have those evil ideas. Or somebody like Kelly would say, no, you go to the book fair because you have this value, and yeah, it's not the most ideal situation. And I don't know if you're really sanctioning people just by, nobody looking on that situation would say you're necessarily sanctioning other people's ideas just because the government's ideas just because you're using their book fair, even though you know that it's a false book fair. So, I don't know, where do you stand? I know where I stand. We'll talk about it. So, this problem stems from, again, I think I said before, the objectivist view of volition is that we have total control of and awareness of our volition, which is implied by, again, the objectivist view of induction, which is strict, which is correct, but yeah, too strict. So if we do have total control of our volition, is what I'm saying, is that Peikoff is correct. If not, then Kelly is correct. And even the acknowledgement that we don't have free will is met with an evil connotation. They say evil a lot from objectivism. Even the acknowledgement that we don't have free will. Which is why they subscribe to, more cognitive behavioral model. But, but again, what do I say about cognitive behavioral therapy? The entire basis of psychology is that there is no free will. If your view of psychology is, well, just get the right ideas and your emotions will work themselves out eventually, that's not psychology. That just seems like an extension of philosophy. The reason we have psychology is because we admit to the extent that there is no free will. At least in some degree. To some extent. Now, I think there is free will, but I can also acknowledge that there's an extent to which we don't have free will. I've seen them. They're called complexes. I see them in myself. And that's why the objectivist, if it's to be, taken as this religion kind of view, which I don't think it is a religion. I mean, all things can be a religion. It's a religion with way better epistemology. I'm not making that claim, but I definitely see where people are coming from. I mean, and if you're an objectivist, you got to see that too. Even though it was technically not a religion. I know. But what does it mean that somebody would say that about you? I think to indicate where we're going here. So if objectivism is to be viewed as a religion, Kant is the devil. Kant is evil incarnate because he is the ultimate psychologist. He says that there is a reality out there and a reality in here, and we can't know, we can know a reality in here, but we can't know the reality out there because of the reality in here, because of the inner reality. Which is true psychologically. There is an extent to which that is definitely true psychologically. We all see it. We have complexes. We have issues. And our view of reality is completely skewed. Kant took what he saw as, in part, he was answering Hume, but he took what he saw, I think, happening in people. He saw people as irrational, and he was trying to explain it. Now, he made it a philosophical argument, which was his error, but psychology really wasn't around at the time. But again, this is, in part, Jung's genius. As he said, well, Kant was a poor philosopher, but he's a good psychologist. Same thing with Plato. And we do have a consciousness in here, and we do have reality out there. And part of what overcoming neurosis is learning how to see reality, learning how to put our libido out into the world in a healthy way, interact with reality in a healthy way. Jung was able to see Kant for what he was. Oh, he saw a bunch of other things and effectively created a new religion, a new kind of religion. It's even more profound than that, but okay. So what do objectivists do here is, so this objectivism is a philosophy. It's not an identity. It's not a personality. It is one aspect of your life. And so when objectivists say that because your ideas are evil, you must be evil, this is a projection. This is a projection because objectivists identify with their ideas. So they think, well, if I had those ideas, I would be evil. So others must be evil as well. And credit to objectivists. They are meticulous about their ideas. I mean, that's what it trains you to do. It really trains you to be meticulous about ideas and other people's ideas as well. And there's a definite benefit to that. But there can be a detriment to that. And I think this is the projection that objectivists commit that rubs everybody the wrong way. And this was committed in the part of the huge Peikoff-Kelly conflict and split. So the resolution here, I think, is to say, well, Kelly is correct psychologically, Peikoff is correct philosophically. Technically, Peikoff is correct because they are talking about philosophy, but effectively, Kelly is correct. Same thing. The difference between classical physics and quantum physics, it's all about perspective. Certain things are true in certain contexts. Thought I heard something there. So what does this mean? Well, if you hold the objectivist view, this means that when, not if, when you fail or experience an injustice, it happens. It's going to be very difficult for you. It's going to be very difficult for you to admit what happens because, well, you're right. Your views are right. Peikoff's criticism of libertarianism, I think, maybe you don't think that, but there are arguments that are right. So if people hold different views, therefore they are wrong. Therefore, because they are wrong, you will make judgments about them being wrong. And I think my face is covering up there, but this is the main point. Therefore, your judgments will be unnecessarily critical, because your assumption is people are their ideas. Because that's what you are. Now, objectivism doesn't tell you to do this, of course. Of course, they don't tell you to identify what the idea is, but they set up a process by which that's the only thing that could possibly happen because they keep you from doing the other thing. Okay, but. So that's what this means, but what's going on here? Do we have all the facts? So Peikoff is correct if we knew that what was in someone else's consciousness effectively. But we don't have all the facts, right? We don't have all the facts when we judge consciousness. We don't know really what's going on with people. We can see somebody who we would violently disagree with, and if we held those ideas, it would be an act of evil because we know better. But maybe because of certain psychological issues, certain complexes that we all have to some degree, they can't see that. And in fact, they use that bad idea as a way to distract themselves from that exact issue. And maybe it's not their fault because they've really never been shown a way to manage that issue before. Objectivism, you definitely haven't. You don't have a solution to it. You just say, stop evading, and that's irrational. Well, why are you being irrational? Why would you evade in the first place? Don't you think those are crucial things to answer? And I think that objectivism commit their cardinal sin, evasion, in this, because they don't recognize that there's this thing called the irrational that exists. the seemingly irrational. From Menser's point of view, and a lot of people's point of view, the decision on the 1980 Olympia was irrational. Do you have all the facts? And this is the crux of relationships, right? And so this is why, objectivism runs into a lot of problems. Or any interaction really is whether you seek to understand, whether you're interested in somebody, and whether you can develop your own identity apart from any idea you may hold on to. Because you understand, while ideas are made up of facts, and facts can be right and wrong, and some ideas can be evil, it's like that would be, part of your development of a personality is coming to terms with that. And honestly, Menser, he didn't do this, and I think he ended up dead because of it. His life didn't seem to work out too well. Like, there's a lot of rumors going on. I think what you see is egregiously terrible behavior, and so my experience has been dealing with, and again, I'm not just judging your run-of-the-mill objectivist or guy who says he agrees with objectivism. I understand how that can be annoying. I wouldn't judge objectivism for that, but I will judge objectivism. I will take a piece from their playbook, a page from their playbook, and judge two objectivists that I've had an interaction with. This is, and this regards to the point of, how it's difficult to really know all the facts, even though you think you do. So after I finished my dissertation, and it wasn't accepted by academia, I thought, okay, well, let's reach out to people who maybe would accept it. And I thought, objectivists would be, interested, I think, because they at least acknowledge. Yeah, they make this point about, how it's okay to judge people and not their ideas, even though they acknowledge that they don't understand psychology fully. They acknowledge that there's no unified theory of psychology. So I thought, this would be something to send them, because I think they'd be interested, because that's what I at least claim I did my dissertation, which of course later became Man's Guide to Psychology. Well, yeah, so I listened to this panel in 2015 where the people on the panel, the subjectivist panel, made that point that a panel about psychology, and they say, yeah, there's some interesting views of psychology. I don't know. They really just subscribe to the CBT model because they don't have the ability, right, to subscribe to anything else. Because it's really not a psychology. Okay, well, I'm covering old points, and I'm also indicating more of what we're going to elaborate on. So I sent it out to the people on the panel, and every reaction I got was one of disdain, one a prominent objectivist. Like, if you're in any objectivist circles, you would definitely know him. He accused me of being, quote, too young to develop a theory of psychology. So I did a summary, a 500-word summary for each person I send it to, because they don't have to read the book. So they just responded to that, and he said, no, you're just too young. The other accused me of it would just take a feat of integration. There's no way you could have done it. Didn't respond to the ideas at all. Didn't even look at the 500 words. Clearly, if you disagree, at least come back, with some questions. I'm not asking you to lick my butt over this, and the other accused me of repression. This one was really weird. And this person not only accused me of repression, but sent a pretty, a strangely strongly, it was strange how strongly worded it was. And then this person, trying not to reveal the gender, then this person left a message on my answering machine, yelling at me, scolding me, and telling me that I need to go to therapy. Even though, so she was saying, there's no way that psychology only comes down to two emotions. Even though in that 500 words I've said, look, I know a common criticism to this is there's no way there can be two emotions. And I'm not saying that there's only two feeling states, but no, she didn't even get that far. This person didn't even get that far in it. That doesn't give away too much. I don't care. But, man, some of the worst boundaries I've ever seen. Professional, I mean, not, I've been in academia, so I've seen some really bad professional boundaries, but it's up there. Really just poor relationships with people because I think of this view that we're going to get into more. So how to avoid this error? Well, I think, part of the reason why it's aggravated in objectivists is because they actually have standards. They have expectations. A lot of people deal with this by just not really having expectations. You could also get into stoicism or mindset like Platz does, and just effectively pretend psychology doesn't exist. Oh yeah, Tom Platz. Okay, so there's going to be a video in part 2 about Tom Platz, so get ready for that. Or Tom Platz talking about Mike Mentzer. So just effectively pretend that psychology doesn't exist, and when you come into hardship that affects you, you just say it doesn't, whatever. Doesn't affect me. I have no expectations. I guess that's what stoicism does too in a way. Just to lower your expectations. Maybe those are just two sides of the same thing. Or you could learn how psychology affects philosophy within yourself. You can learn how that process works, because it does. And I'm going to take points from Objectivism, by the way, to indicate that, to show that. Okay, so that's laying out the background for Objectivism. What's going on there? Laying out some of the problems. We're going to bring this all back around, but first we're going to go to the 1980 Olympia, which we're going to get at through looking at the evolution of physical culture. I think this is important background information. Before we tie these strings together, cross these. Well, no, you don't cross the streams. Can't do that. But okay. So let's look at evolution of physical culture. What physical culture was in the beginning, it was just strongmen. We have Louis Cyr, clearly not too concerned with his body. But they would go around and do these feats of strength. It was like the sideshow attraction. Here, you see two horses pulling him in opposite directions, and basically he's saying he's stronger than the horses. Yeah, not really true, but and you'd have guys like this who'd go around and lift baby elephants. I think what's very telling about this photo is this guy is dressed in a suit. This is going to come back to, this is going to, excuse me, I think I need some water. And by water, I mean coffee. Alright, excuse me. So yeah, this guy's in a suit, which is going to come into play later. So really the first bodybuilder was Sandow. This was called the Bronze Age. Now, clearly we see a guy with a great body, especially for the turn of the century. Late 19th century. Great butt too. What's a presentation without badass? That's my philosophy. So he had a great body, but he was a lot more than that. And I'm focusing on Sandow because he's actually the statue for the Olympia, for the contest that we're going to talk about later, for the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. He's the guy in the statue. But I think what people misunderstand about Sandow is he wasn't just a body, right? He went around the world. He spoke with world leaders, with princes, with dignitaries, and he inspired. He sold physical culture. He talked about why it was important to be in shape. He did feats of strength as well. In fact, that's how he got famous. He went around and broke all these grip strength testers, like an old-timey version of that. And they arrested him because, like, dude, you can't break our grip machines. And he said, no, but I was just using the way that what the instructions said. And then so then they couldn't arrest him so that was just a cool way to promote himself. But he's not just showing up and saying, look how ripped I am, right? That's the idea. Here's more man ass. And here's a very unfortunate fig leaf, but you get the idea. And then we get into the silver era. And it's more about bodies, but it's like you do something. Like here these guys are selling it. Here's Steve Reeves picking up a woman on the beach, like being attractive with women. When's the last time you've seen a professional bodybuilder pose with women who didn't also look like she was on some kind of hormone replacement of her own? It's just becoming, I think you see where I'm getting at here. It's physical culture is like the psychology of it is getting more and more removed from it. And you're extracting out the body and you're making it this thing that just isn't real anymore. And here's Steve Reeves, one of his roles in Hercules, and he looks like a normal guy. Like just hold up your hand to the screen, and hold up your hand and just show his face. He looks like he has hair. Same thing with Dave Draper. Like he had hair. He could have been a normal guy. He was just in shape, and here he has a personality. Oh, I'm a California kid. I'm always flexing on the beach. He could almost be a professional wrestler. This is more golden era now. And then here's Frank Zane. I mean, just wearing jeans. And the idea here is that he just looks normal. He's still like integrated into life in a sense. But he just happens to have a really good body. Whereas what bodybuilding has become is this. Here's this guy. His name's Nick Walker. His nickname is the Mutant. And you have these guys, I mean, look at his legs. I am really into physical culture. I'm into bodybuilding. I think it's cool. I mean, I would never be a bodybuilder myself. I mean, yeah, right. I would hate to do it. I exercise in my own way. But I look at Nick Walker and I think, dude, this is ridiculous. You don't even look good. What are you doing? I think you're part of this weird subculture that's become too much of a subculture, and it just got really weird. Here's his back. Dude, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm trying to think of what to say about this. It's like in a way, like I do think it's cool that your back can be that big, but this is not aesthetic at all. You're just trying to get the biggest muscles ever. I think you're only doing that because you're taking the mind out of the equation. I think people look at this and they see something like Michael Jackson's face, advanced plastic surgery. This is him in court, so he doesn't have the benefit of specific lighting or having the right makeup on. And it's horrendous. Same thing with makeup culture, the way it's become, like this girl, the girl on the left is the same as the girl on the right. Yeah, by the way, if you're dating a girl, be sure to check her out without makeup as soon as possible, because you never know what's going on. I mean, I've heard stories of, girls won't even come out of their bedroom. Like, I've known women who had roommates, and their roommates wouldn't even come out of their own room, to the common area unless they put on their makeup. But yeah, I mean, this looks just ridiculous. The girl on the right? I mean, she's a freak. I'm not alone when I say clearly the one on the left is more attractive, and it's not even close. I mean, imagine sitting down with the girl like the one on the right. I mean, maybe I'm just saying that because I think the girl, I could get the one on the left because I just don't have the self-esteem to get the one on the right. Okay, you can make that argument, but it just seems you look like a clown. That's a mask. Then that seems a lot like bodybuilders now. You look like freaks. I know, we could analyze the golden ratio, the girl's face and everything on the right, and she probably applies makeup in a way to make it more in line with some golden ratio, and we can do the math and everything. And we can do the math and say, dude, you're just objectively in better shape than Tom Platz ever was. But doesn't work. And I think it doesn't work is because now, because of the split in physical culture, it's based on just poor philosophy. It's not smiling. Never smile. Nobody has a personality. Only Kai Green kind of has a personality. I don't even think he's a competitor anymore. And just look at Pumping Iron versus Generation Iron, which is a bodybuilding movie. I think there's been several since it first came out in 2013. But, you know, Pumping Iron is filled with different personalities. Just guys being honest and just guys not trying to, like, be something or be somebody. They're just kind of being themselves, and they all have a personality. In Generation Iron, everybody's just trying to be Arnold. Nobody has their own personality. Kai Green kind of does. But nobody has their own personality. They just all watched the Pumping Iron way too many times and just wanted to become him. And here's Big Ramy. He was at Olympia a couple years ago. Okay, so yeah. Mike Mentzer's 5'9", 225 a competition. Big Ramy, 5'9", 295. 70 extra pounds of muscle, less body fat. It's unbelievable. Mike Mentzer, and by the way, if you saw Mike Mentzer in peak physical condition walk down the street, you would be talking about it with your friends. And you don't even have to be bodybuilding. You'd be talking about it with your friends probably for months. Yeah, months later, somebody will bring up something about bodybuilding or working out, and you're like, oh yeah, I saw this one guy. He just had a shirt on. He looked ridiculous. That's what you would think about 225-pound, 5'9" guy. You know, probably 3% body fat or 4% body fat at the time. And this guy, Big Ramy, weighs 70 more pounds. I mean, in a way, I appreciate it. Like, it's cool. But this promotes a kind of culture I don't want to be a part of. If we're talking about physical culture. And, you know, they're trying to, you know, they're bringing back vacuums, I guess. But so it's a complete devolution of physical culture, separation of the body from the world. Similar thing has happened in spiritual culture. You go to retreats, you go to monasteries, and it's just is going to become more and more popular as you do that, as you tell people that, like, mental health is something completely disconnected from their daily life. And I think you see a lot of, because this has become more physical culture, you see just a lot of more unhealthy habits around calorie counting, which I think is ridiculous. I guess if you're really overweight and have no knowledge of food, it's maybe you need to count calories or maybe weigh food in the beginning just to maybe get some idea, but people do that for years on end, and I just can't see that as anything but some kind of disorder, unless you're doing it for, like, you're in competition. I get it, but so it's the devolution of physical culture, right? And then similar kind of debate comes up in the 1980 Olympia issue question of, why did Arnold win? Why didn't Mentzer win? Similar kind of debate comes up with, should Stallone be in the Boxing Hall of Fame? Now, Stallone, is never a boxer. He just made the Rocky movies. Not a boxer, but he's a huge promoter of boxing. So, yeah, he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think it's very similar. I'm going to take a similar view of the 1980 Olympia. And if we look at the Sandow Trophy, Sandow, his story is really more like the Ziz's story. Remember the Ziz? Am I even saying that right? He's just this guy with a, nice body who just go around and take pictures with people. He had this crazy hair. He died of heart failure due to steroids, when he was like 23 or something. He was like one of these first internet celebrities. That's what Sandow was. Sandow is not this. But Big Ramy, are you serious? Okay. Thanks for showing us how serious you are by never smiling. And so the Mentzer objectivist blind spot here, which we're going to elaborate on more next week, is it's just limited perspective. Like Mentzer is limited. Yeah, you got a perfect score at the 78 Mr. Universe, but so what? And And as Menser says, I'm going to quote Menser, anything that exists in reality can be viewed and judged objectively. Okay, well, this objective exists in reality. Let's view it and judge it objectively. And also, you can't just say irrational or subjectivist or evil when you don't like somebody's actions or you don't like their ideas. That's good enough for philosophy, but I think philosophy is so intertwined with something like psychology. I'm not saying one comes first, and we're going to talk about what I think the relationship is between philosophy and psychology. We'll get into it next week. But you can't just say irrational, subjectivist, or evil. If you want to, I mean, that's essentially an ad hominem, because you can't explicate where those things come from besides you chose to be evil, or you're evading the truth. It's circular. And I think all these things made Menser blind. Let me move and what happened. This made Menser blind to the contest, the 1980 Olympia contest, and what happened. I think it makes a lot of people blind. He thought it was about bodybuilding. But that's only the part they say out loud. There's a quiet part. Kind of looks like, I don't know, I made this so you have limited perspective. But if you're intelligent, then you say, well, I'm right. So my limited perspective is right, so this creates rigidity and unwillingness to learn and grow, and just becomes this negative cycle, this devolution. I think that's what happened with Menser. I think it happens with a lot of objectivists. It's what I see when I reach out to more prominent objectivists. And we'll talk more about why that is. So this will be continued. Yeah, this has gone on long enough. Next week, part 2, the conclusions. The conclusion to this presentation, I'll come to various conclusions, is that what specifically happened at the 1980 Olympia, we'll get more detailed about it, the fallout, I know there's been some hint at it already this week, and how this relates with problems with objectivism. How Mike Menser's error committed the cardinal sin of objectivism, I would argue. We'll talk about takeaways in general, we'll say like what Menser needed to do to become healthy or to grow from this is exactly what, it's a perfect reflection of what objectivism as a movement needs to do if it ever wants to become more popular. And then we're going to go into a bunch of examples of how this happens on a broad scale and on each of our lives, personal lives. I'm going to go into how this happened with me specifically in grad school. I know I've talked about it, but I think I'm going to talk about it a little bit different way. But that will all be next week. Do you have any comments? Let me know what you guys think, what I get right. I enjoy your criticisms as well, even if they're mean. I think it's all beautiful. AnimusEmpire.com/book if you want to, read that. What was my dissertation that became this book. Lays the foundation for what I think is, unifying principles of psychology. And then if you want to apply those principles in the clinic, I have a way to do that. Contact me, schedule a free consultation if you want to learn more about that, or just chat. AnimusEmpire.com/schedule. Thank you guys. I'll leave it there. And I wish you all the pain and joy that comes from figuring out how we're going to tie all the threads that we've laid out in this first week into the second week.